Ambassador Zeftar of the Galactic Confederation adjusted his translator implant as he addressed the newest member species delegation. The crystalline beings from Zirion 7th had just been granted provisional membership, and like all newcomers, they required the standard briefing about territorial boundaries and restricted zones. "The red sectors on your star charts," Zeftar explained, his 6 arms gesturing toward the holographic display, "represent quarantined or hazardous regions. Most are radiation zones, stellar graveyards, or territories belonging to hostile species. We're still negotiating with." One of the Zirian representatives, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns, raised what served as their communication appendage. "What about the blue zone in the Sol system? It appears to contain a habitable world." The chamber fell silent. Zeftar's mandibles clicked nervously, a habit he'd never quite overcome despite centuries of diplomatic service. Around the circular room, representatives from dozens of species shifted uncomfortably. The Altarian delegate's tentacles coiled, tighter around his hover chair, while the Rigelian ambassador's bioluminescent patches dimmed noticeably. "That," Zeftar said carefully, "is Earth. And that blue designation means something entirely different." The Zirion delegate's curiosity was palpable through their harmonic vibrations. "Is it a quarantine zone? Some sort of plague world?" "Not exactly," replied Commander Kexathul, the military liaison whose species had been among the first to encounter humans nearly a century ago. His scaled hide bore the distinctive scarring of old plasma burns, souvenirs from what the humans called first contact. "Earth isn't quarantined because of disease, it's quarantined because of its inhabitants." The holographic display zoomed in on the 3rd planet of the Sol system, showing its blue oceans and swirling white clouds. To most species, it looked like paradise: abundant water, moderate temperatures, and a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere that could sustain dozens of known life forms. "The species calls itself humanity," Zeftar continued. "Bipedal, carbon-based, average lifespan of roughly 80 of their solar cycles. On the surface, they seem unremarkable. But appearances, as we've learned, can be catastrophically deceiving, Dr. Vesandra, the Confederation's chief xenobiologist, activated her data tablet with a gesture of her elongated fingers. "We first detected their radio emissions approximately 200 years ago. Standard protocol suggested we wait for them to achieve faster-than-light travel before making contact. What we discovered while monitoring them changed everything." Holographic display shifted to show archived footage from Earth's surface. Cities sprawled across continents, vehicles moved in endless streams, and massive structures reached toward the sky. But it wasn't the civilization that made the observers uncomfortable. It was what came next. "They fight," Commander Kexthul stated bluntly. "Not just occasionally, for resources or territory like most species. They fight constantly, with weapons that could crack planets. And somehow, they survive it." The footage showed massive explosions, mushroom clouds rising into the atmosphere, and then, impossibly, the same areas rebuilt and thriving decades later. The Zirion delegate's harmonic frequency rose to an alarmed pitch. "This species weaponized the fundamental forces of the universe before they achieved interplanetary flight," Dr. Vesiandra explained. "They split atoms for warfare while still using chemical rockets. They turned their planet's very elements against each other, and then continued to live on it." Zeftar pulled up another set of data. But the weapons weren't the most disturbing discovery. It was their entertainment. The display showed humans engaged in various activities, throwing themselves out of aircraft with fabric wings, diving into shark-infested waters, climbing vertical rock faces without safety equipment, and launching themselves into space in metal capsules that other species would consider coffins. They seek danger, the ambassador explained, for pleasure. They voluntarily expose themselves to scenarios that would terrify our most elite warriors, and they call it fun. A collective shudder ran through the delegation. The Altarian representative spoke through his translator. Surely this is aberrant behavior among their population. We thought so too, Commander Kexthul replied grimly. Until we intercepted their global communication networks. It's universal. They have competitions to see who can endure the most pain. They consume toxic substances that alter their brain, chemistry recreationally. They voluntarily enter small chambers where they're trapped with nothing but weights to lift over and over again until their muscles tear and rebuild stronger. Dr. Vesa Andra added, their medical records show they regularly survive traumas that would kill most of our species outright. Severed limbs, massive blood loss, cardiac failure, they just continue. We've documented cases of humans functioning normally with projectiles embedded in their skulls. The Xerion delegate's crystalline form was now cycling through colors. That indicated extreme distress. But surely if they're so dangerous, the Confederation should intervene, contain them? The silence that followed was heavy with uncomfortable memories. Finally, Zeftar spoke. We tried that, once. A joint task force of 7 species, representing the finest military minds in the galaxy, developed a plan to establish a protective barrier around their system. For their own good, you understand, and for the safety of the galaxy. Commander Kexthul's scarred hide darkened. The humans detected our fleet while we were still positioning at the edge of their system. Before we could explain our peaceful intentions, they launched 3 metal cylinders from their planet's surface. No faster-than-light drives, no energy shields, no weapon signatures our sensors could identify. What happened? The Xerion delegate asked, though their harmonic frequency suggested they weren't sure they wanted to know. Those cylinders contained humans, Zeftar said quietly. Just humans. 12 of them total, in basic life support suits, with primitive chemical-powered weapons. They somehow maneuvered those ridiculous contraptions into attack positions on our flagship and knocked on the hull. They knocked? Literally struck the hull with their appendages in a rhythmic pattern. When we brought them aboard, because what else could we do? They requested to discuss the situation over coffee. They served us a beverage made from ground plant matter and water, smiled at us with their exposed teeth, and politely informed us that any attempt to restrict their movement through space would be met with what they called proportional response. Dr. Vesandra pulled up the final piece of data. Analysis of their planet's history shows they've never lost a war to extinction. Populations reduced, civilizations fallen, entire regions rendered uninhabitable, but as a species, they endure. They adapt. They rebuild. And then they explore new ways to survive what should kill them. The Xerion delegate was now pulsing a deep blue that indicated profound confusion. So the blue designation means approach with extreme caution and unlimited respect, Zeftar concluded. The humans have never shown aggression toward peaceful contact. Several species trade with them regularly, and they've been generous with their scientific discoveries. But every analysis we've conducted reaches the same conclusion. Humanity is the apex predator of the galaxy, and they don't even realize it. Commander, Kexthul stood, his scarred hide rippling. They think they're normal. That's perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. To them, surviving planetary extinction events, turning catastrophes into celebrations, and treating the vacuum of space like an inconvenient swimming pool, that's just Tuesday. As the briefing concluded and the delegates filed out, the Xerion representative remained, staring at the blue dot in the holographic display. They transmitted one final question. Has anyone asked them why they do these things? Zeftar paused at the chamber's exit. Yes. The answer was always the same. Because it's there. Apparently, the existence of something, anything, is sufficient justification for a human to attempt surviving contact with it. The ambassador's final words echoed in the empty chamber. So we leave Earth alone. Not because we fear the humans will harm us, but because we're terrified they might try to help us become more like them. Outside the chamber's viewports, the stars twinkled peacefully, and somewhere among them, humanity continued its relentless, cheerful conquest of the impossible.